All right, we are here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Soccer Now crew here, Matt Popchock, Mark Goodman. Gentlemen, we're going to jump right into it. Pittsburgh Riverhounds have had quite a week. If we go back to Saturday last, a controversial result, if you will, a 0-0 tie with the Miami FC that results in some, after that match, results in a lot of back and forth. Officiating was called in question for a play. Miami played the ball back to the keeper, but it wasn't the first touch on a restart. And we know, basically, I think most people that are paying attention pretty much know what happened, that are really paying attention to the Riverhounds. If not, it's all on Pittsburgh Sports Now, Soccer Now. So catch up with it there. But, we'll bring it up to speed. So kind of before we talk about last night's win against Charleston, Mark, what was, have you ever seen anything like this on the soccer field? I grew up in New York. I was 13 years old when the Pine Tar incident happened. It was like the craziest thing ever back then. But from a soccer standpoint, I don't think I've ever seen something play out like this, where the organizations, the officials, and the league said, okay, we're going to restart this match from the 67th minute.
Yeah, so there's two unprecedented in this, and that's the funny thing about the use of the word unprecedented as it got used around the league. The first unprecedented was the error itself, which is, listen, referees make errors all the time. It's perfectly reasonable that speed of that a referee is, their eyes are all that crossed the plane and certainly went over the line, is going to be ruled a non-goal, or vice versa. That a ball that rolled out of bounds is going to be ruled inbounds. That a totally absolute clean out red card is going to be judged a fair tackle. Like, those things happen, right? That was not what happened. And that's what's unprecedented about the first part about this decision, which is that the thing that happened, these collectively decided that the ball first pass directly backward the goalkeeper and rolled into the goal, which is not a striker, that it is a corner kick, a goal kick. They conveniently had mania and another player who played it back in goal. So that's unprecedented thing number one. Unprecedented thing number two is replaying the game starting from the 67th minute, which is crazy. And on some level, it doesn't, should have done it. And then 23 minutes, like, that would make more sense to me. Then they would acknowledge, and then the game needs to progress after the screwed up call to that period. That's super weird. And then on top of that super weirdness, it might all be irrelevant because because the Hounds got a win in Charleston. Yeah, because the Hounds got.
Yeah, Mark, you were cutting in and out just a little bit there. But
a Charlotte in their next two games.
Well, it's an interesting point, because if the Hounds had lost last night, I'm wondering what the expense of going down to Miami and, that whole bit, if they didn't really need the 3 points, but, Charlotte wins out or whatever. But I mean, I get it. And I think that one thing that Tuffy Schallenberger, the Riverhounds owner, I mean, he obviously, and Bob Lilly, I'm sure they wanted to, see this, to get some justice, if you will, and see if they could find a way to get those 3 points. And I think, I don't know, Matt, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I opened the Riverhounds discussion last week with a sports cliche that I don't like and I'm tired of. So this week I'm going to switch things up. I'm going to give you a cliche that I do like and I happen to believe very strongly in. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And USL, that perpetually broken clock of second-tier professional soccer, it took them some time, but in the grand scheme of things, they got it right. I'm going to be fair to USL. A number of us, I think, before the show, including our colleague, the erstwhile voice of the Riverhounds, Matt Geitko, were discussing this. And to sort of steal other Matt's thunder a little bit, this isn't just kind of like what Mark talked about. This goes beyond the sort of reasonable level of human error that you can expect from officials in a run-of-the-mill regular season professional soccer match. This was a clear misapplication of a rule that fundamentally impacted the outcome of what was and is at this point a high-stakes match for both teams. And there may not be precedent in this particular circuit for a match to be replayed or partially replayed under these circumstances, but we've seen in other parts of the world, World Cup qualifiers and Champions League and what have you, we've seen other matches replayed or replayed in part where, again, there was a gross misapplication of something that was in the books. So again, in the grand scheme of things, USL did get it right, and I applaud them for acknowledging it, for taking that crew off its subsequent match that it was scheduled for, and for giving the Riverhounds a fair shake at earning all 3 points in that match. Because as it turns out, like you guys have said, they might very well need all 3 points. Those 3 points, depending upon what Charlotte does with the rest of its schedule, those 3 points could make a world of difference. And, you know, on a personal level, I'm of the belief that the human element, as it's often called, is kind of overly romanticized in sports in general. And again, it just comes back to too much being at stake in the match. That's something you got to get it right, and they did. And I applaud the league for the position it took.
Yeah, turn your volume down.
All right, yeah, I mean, we all felt that way. As soon as it happened, we noticed ball being played back to the keeper, goes in. Really, I only needed one replay. I looked at the replay once. I said, well, that's a second touch. There's no way that they can't overturn that. And the official goes over to the AR. It's a brief discussion. I figured he's checking with the AR just to make sure that that second touch took place. And what happened after that just kind of blew my mind. And I think we could just go on and on about it, but it seems like justice was served in this case. I think we all agree. You know, I just think now, in hindsight, you know, I don't forget who it was who brought it up. I think it was Mark, in terms of revenue loss for a playoff game. I think you crunched the numbers, Mark, didn't you? It's almost like the cost of this to go back to Miami. You know, maybe they bring in a little bit more revenue in on top of that, but I mean, they're spending a little bit to make a little bit, but I mean, it's all good. They want to win, obviously they want an advantage, but you know, there's some revenue streams coming in if they get a home playoff game, right, Mark?
Yeah, it's like $50,000 to $100,000, you know, between concessions and ticket sales and all that stuff. So it's a big deal, but you know, and I think on top of that is just the fact that Riverhounds fans really want a home playoff game, and if they don't get one, if they wind up in the 3 or the 4 spot, which would happen if they lose all 3 of these games or 2 out of 3 of these games. Sorry, there's only 2 left now. 2 of these games or 1 of these games. Then they go on the road. Then they have to rely again on the 3-4 teams in the other bracket to win those games against the top 2 teams, Tampa Bay and Charlotte, as it is right now. So, and then it gets a little better in the Western Conference because I looked at it. The points totals for the Western Conference teams are all much lower, below the number 1 team. So there's a chance for a a final there's a possibility if the Riverhounds played it out just right for a first round away game, second round away game, and a USL Championship final at home.
Right. Well, we've seen crazier things happen. I